This week it's all about warm heads and cool hearts. No, wait a sec. No. Cool heads and warm hearts.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And values and ethics.
Yeah. It's great to be with you for the week 4 feedback video.
Final one for this run of the course.
As you can see, things are getting a little bit festive here. And so it's tremendous to perhaps, have some final considerations from the last week's discussions.
Yeah, some very valuable conversations happening this week, Craig.
And I think it's really interesting and important to explore how being more mindful helps us to understand our values and to choose them perhaps more wisely. And a number of our learners have really noticed that.
I really like the deeper listening that comes with mindfulness. You know, it helps us to focus, it helps us to manage stress, but it also helps us to tune in on a very deep level to what's really important and to notice the effect that our actions have on other people. And that often really leads to much more, I guess, ethical behaviours. And
how our actions have an effect on ourselves as well. Because when we do something that really, and this is, I think, part of the challenge, is that we see something that might be ethical or important to do, something aligned with our values, but we don't do it for some other reason. We'll notice an effect on how we feel. And but when we do that thing which might be difficult and we approach it with some trepidation, but we do stay true to our values, then we find that we feel very different afterwards. Much more at peace with ourselves, even though we might have gone through some adversity. And I think that's very often a pretty good test. That's the proof in the pudding, if you like, of whether or not it was really a mindful action.
And there have been a lot of people throughout history who've stayed very true to themselves, haven't there? Even when they were pushed to change. Your friend Socrates would be a good example of that, I think.
Yeah,
and it comes from a deep inner knowing, I think, that something's more important than what society's telling us to do. But it's only when we slow down and listen and get out of our habitual behaviours that we can even start to get in touch with our values.
Yeah, because otherwise we can just be mindlessly going along with the crowd and maybe not really being reflective.
No. Yeah. And of course values can change. Some of our learners pointed out, look, values change over time. I mean, when you're a kid and teenager, older adult, I mean, our values tend to be different, don't they?
Yeah.
And we need to allow them to change so that we can, stay in alignment with them. But also goals, and that was a really important distinction. A lot of our learners like that. Values are a direction that we head in. There's something that's important that we never tick off, and goals, of course, are things that we kind of achieve along the way as we live a value-based life.
Yeah, and how circumstances change, deeper reflection, and perhaps we sort of hold our goals a little bit more loosely. I want to achieve this, I want to get that, and life takes us on a different path. Or we consider, wait a sec, I thought that was going to make me happy, but it's not. And that's a really
But the values help us to keep that direction going, even if the goals change. And I think that's a really important thing. So we get a sense of flexibility. Plus, of course, mindfulness helps us to accept what's happening, to let go. So all of these things are perhaps in service of living a really meaningful life.
Yeah. And if something doesn't unfold the way that we expect that it could have or should have, then if we're more mindful, it makes it easier, as you said, to be flexible, but to be open to, well, what else presents?
Yes.
What are the other possibilities? Whereas if we're fixed in the past and how we would have liked it to have been and the future and how I'd like it to be, we may not be present to the things that are actually in front of us now, the opportunities, the people.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah.
Great point. One of our learners worked in a hospital and became aware of how ethical decisions were made there. I thought that was really interesting, that comment.
And that was often preceded with a period of silence to actually stop, which, of course, helps the busyness of the mind to settle down a little bit, and then for that to be the ground from which we make decisions, which is, I think, really helpful.
Yeah, we just don't have enough moments of silence these days, do we? It's pretty rare that we'd stop for a second, not be thinking, doing, or spending time on our phone.
Yeah.
And I think that's why mindfulness helps us to get more in touch with our values, whether it's individually or as an organisation, because the moment we stop, there's the opportunity for some deeper knowing to show up.
Yeah, and sometimes on important issues, if what we're being, the basis upon which we're acting is anxiety or anger, sometimes, there's a great emotive force to act, but the action itself may not be well directed.
Yeah.
And so very often it needs that cool head, the warm heart, and not the anxiety, but to help us to actually know, well, there's an issue, but how to respond to it.
Yeah. I'm really liking that expression at the moment, cool head, warm heart. It's really vibing with me. I love it.
Yeah.
One of our learners also or some of our learners actually noticed how when we observe how our decisions impact other people, just living in alignment doesn't mean that we're not going to have conflict, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean things are always going to work out well.
Yes. And perhaps sometimes we're able to tolerate the difference of opinion or perspective with somebody else without feeling an internal conflict. We may not be a conflict. Somebody else might sometimes, but we don't have to be a conflict ourselves. But we might realise that there's actually a difference. Thinking differently about an issue, having a different perspective, but that doesn't have to be a matter of being at conflict with ourselves or a conflict with others.
No.
So one of the other things that came up during the week as well, sunk cost bias, and a number of learners noticing that how past and attachment and so on often keeps us going way beyond where we should have, when we should have stepped away, and which is, and it's not just that bias, there are many other biases I think that mindfulness can help us to be aware of.
Yeah, but once we notice that we have a cognitive bias at play, then we can work with it. That's Daniel Kahneman's main message.
Yeah.
We're always plagued by these different mental, thinking fallacies or cognitive biases. But the moment we become aware of it, okay, we can start to work with it. Oh, I'm gambling and I'm trying to just win back the money that I originally put into the machine, and I'm just about to draw another 100 out of the, all of a sudden that moment of mindfulness might say, you know what, maybe I should just walk away.
Yes,
maybe this isn't working out.
Yeah. The meditations as well sort of opened up and went further than perhaps in previous weeks. The choiceless awareness was, I think, for many learners, a really helpful practice, but many noticed also that it's not easy. Much easier for the mind to wander off, which is, I think, one of the reasons why it's not generally the first practice that's provided.
No.
The more focused attention is provided, and then focused, and the open awareness or choiceless awareness sort of comes later.
And we can always come back to that focused awareness. If we're doing a choiceless awareness practice and we start just getting completely confused, just feel the feet on the floor or come back to the breath for a moment as a way of recentering. But then I think it's a very good practice, choiceless awareness, because if we can allow everything just to be as it is without that resistance and that tug of war, we can experience a profound sense of peace in the middle of any situation.
Yeah.
Right? And then, and I really like this, one learner noted that in this meditation, they started to become aware of awareness itself. Because when we can just allow everything to come and go and just be as it is without engaging with it, it becomes a little more apparent that there's something that's having that experience. And that, for me, is probably the most interesting question in my life right now. Like, what's having this experience right now?
Yeah.
And when we meditate in this way, we can start to not ask that question intellectually, but just start to pay attention to the fact that there is something that's aware, that's not changing, and that's having all the experiences that we have.
Yeah.
And that's it's a very sort of profound question, and also has profound benefits, profound sort of implications for mental health.
Yeah.
If we could just allow any thought or emotion to come and go, what's that going to do for us long term?
That's right. So many learners also notice that metaphor of the sand, the shifting state of our experiences, and the rock, that which is steady and stable within us, is a very good metaphor, because it kind of describes the differences in nature between passing experience and that sort of more solid awareness. And if we learn to, as it were, rest in that sort of more stable aspect of ourselves, the awareness, the observer, then we don't get so caught up in all the shifting sand. Sand's a good metaphor we'll probably come back to later as well.
And then it's about getting off the cushion out into our everyday life.
Yeah.
And everyday mindfulness, once again, it always resonates with our learners. They really liked it. This, of course, at the moment, there are some big things happening in the media. I mean, there are always big things happening. We've had a serious major sort of environmental sort of disaster. And that brings up for a lot of people, well, how do I relate to that? If I'm watching the news and there are these horrible things happening in New Zealand or somewhere else in the world, how do we relate to that? And I think a mindful sort of relationship with world events is a healthy relationship. First of all, realising that something on the news is by definition new. I mean, it's not happening all the time. That's what the news is. It's reporting things that are out of the ordinary. So it's not that the whole world's falling apart and blowing up. It's just that, that we focus in with that negativity bias on things that sell news products, and it's usually these kinds of disasters.
And that's standing back helps us not to experience so much of the vicarious stress.
Yes.
To remain compassionate and present to it, but not with the vicarious stress.
No.
Then that starts to have quite a negative impact on ourselves.
Yeah. Looking for the helpers, I always say that. I mean, you see that there are emergency workers or people filming or people trying to expose something. And again, that's related to compassion, because compassion is about empathising, but then wanting to relieve the suffering. So anybody who's there on the ground filming, helping, that's an act of compassion right there. And when we see that, I think that can be pretty heartwarming.
And I think for very often the first responders, people who are going into those challenging situations, the importance of being mindful for their mental health and well-being is just so vital as well.
It's true. That's why a lot of police and military and paramedics are all getting trained in mindfulness now.
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful.
So it's coming to the end of this course, and of course the seasons are changing. We're into festive mode, but just a few things to say by way of closing. And many of our learners are going to be sorry that the course is over, but of course there's opportunities, if you'd like, next March and then into April to do the Mindfulness for Wellbeing and Peak Performance course, and then this course will be on again in April. So there's opportunities for that. Please share your feedback as well. Step 4.15, Reflect and Connect. We really do value feedback, and as learners who've done this course before would know, we really do listen. Jen and Sherelle do a fantastic job, not only of providing our weekly summaries, but also of
a summary of the whole course, so that we can make little changes here and there.
The reflection and to help us to always be, in as much as we can, improving the course.
Please rate and review the course as well, so that other people can find out about it.
Yes, that's right, and we certainly appreciate hearing from you. And also, there's Mindful Moments, short clips as well, and the Monash Mindfulness YouTube channel, if you'd like to get some extra little bites of mindfulness.
Tidbits over the holidays.
That's right. So so that's going to be all from us. I don't know about you, Richard. It's getting a bit hot in here.
I'm done with this hat, actually.
I know, it's really
a hot
heating
day,
up.
really. Like, what are we doing?
Anyway, I don't know. So thank you. But we are, of course, in the southern hemisphere, and it is a pretty warm time of the year. And so
I think we're done.
Oh, I think so. I think that's all. So have a great festive season. We'll look forward to seeing you again in 2020. And
shall we kick back and
why not?
It's time to relax.
Oh, lovely. Oh, an Australian Christmas, isn't there? Is there anything better?
50 plus.
50 plus. Oh man, there won't be a single photon that'll get under my skin. Oh, thank you. I'll have a bit of that.
Have a good holiday.
Yeah, I'm going to practice some mindfulness right now.